Dot's eyes glanced along the pergo floorboards, and she wondered when she would have the strength to tidy up the debris and dust bunnies being gathered. Her mind wandered briefly to wonder why there wasn't a recycle plan for dust, as there was for paper and plastics. Surely there could be something useful from secondhand dust. Lawn mulch? Plaster mix? Insulation material? As you can judge by the quantity eluded, it had been a long time since Dot had last crouched on the floor with dustpan and broom in hand. As she glanced up, Dot saw her husband Eli sitting at the computer desk inside his office. The glass panel door was closed, and she could see he was on video conference call with a new client. Eli had worked for 20 years as a webmaster for a local private college, but when his wife became ill, he left his career in order to be home to help with her needs. If there is not much satisfaction in the role of caregiver, the smile on Eli's face when Jillian comes home from school and he helps with homework was for him the silver lining in an otherwise storm cloud of a healing journey. Seeing that Dot was finally awake and meandering about, Eli smiled gently in her direction and simply raised his eyebrow in a query as he gave a thumbs up and then thumbs down gesture her way. Dot knew he was asking if she was doing okay in the moment and if she needed anything. After a dozen years of marriage, the two had become quite adept at their own unique channel of nonverbal communication. Dot curled the right side of her mouth to offer back a slight smile and lifted her thumb up and nodded her head in a deep bow of gratitude for all that Eli did to help make her day a little more manageable. Indeed, when she reached the other end of the room, she could see that both dog bowls were full and fresh water was available for her furless friends. "Hey, girls, you could have come down here on your own hours ago to eat," she whispered. "You didn't need to wait for me to wake up and crawl out of bed." The pups just cocked their heads in the familiar stance of the RCA Victrola dog, as if they had no clue why Dot was speaking. "Go eat!" Dot giggled. Buddha and Dolly amiably buried their heads and crunched the tiny kibbles despite their missing teeth. It was a common trait of the Xoloids quintly to lack most of their teeth due to the same gene that caused their hairlessness. But by the sound of chomping the dry bits, you would never know these dogs to be short any of their fangs. Dot sat on the floor next to the water dish, as she knew if she headed back upstairs, the dogs would feel compelled to follow her and miss their lunch, much like they had already missed breakfast, it would seem. "Go hurry up," Dot commanded. And without missing a beat, both Xolos dashed out the bathroom door, and the sound of the dog door swinging open and shut let her know they had complied with her wishes. In less than 2 minutes, the doggy door creaked and banged twice more, and the sound of long toenails slipping on the wood laminate flooring signaled they had finished their business and were once again back on duty by her side. "Good girls, let's go back upstairs." Buddha was a standard Xolo, standing just over 22 inches at her shoulder, the perfect height for Dot to steady her hand on Buddha's strong back as they walked up to the bedroom one stair-step at a time. The postprandial hypotension from the POTS was setting in, and Dot needed to lie back down and rest while her body slowly digested the small meal. She could feel her head become dizzy, and waves of heat were rising up in her torso, making her feel flush. Propping a few pillows at the head of her bed, Dot leaned back and raised her feet up. The dogs quickly took their place by her side, each one flanking her waist and thighs with the weight of their body. Miss Dolly put her warm neck on Dot's tummy lightly, which felt like a welcomed hot compress that seemed to help the food assimilate into her body. Yet long periods of doing nothing were hard on Dot's middle-aged, multitasking mindset, and she reached over to her lap tray and lifted her HP notebook computer onto her thighs. Dot knew how hard it was for Eli to leave the job that he loved and the campus community he had come to consider his extended family, because she had been a tenured member of the faculty at the same institution for the better part of her academic career. She initially thought that taking a semester's sabbatical would help her recharge her fuel cells, but her health decline continued, even as she reduced her daily demands. Her dean made every accommodation for Dot and helped her with specialized ergonomic furniture where she could recline and elevate her feet at her desk. The campus invested in state-of-the-art video conferencing technology so that some of her classes could even be taught from home. Dot was in fact one of the first distance learning faculty prototypes for a changing paradigm in the 21st century student body. But despite all efforts made and her own earnest attempts at reconditioning her defective nervous system, Dot was left no choice but to resign her position after graduation services last spring. Perhaps through habit, the first thing Dot did was check her campus email. As a non-traditional Emeritus faculty member, Dot still maintained her campus computer account and online library privileges. She was tickled to see a subject line from Christopher, her former dean, at the top of the list. Dot clicked to open the message and giggled to herself at the thought of her former boss sending her a silly social networking game application invitation.
Chris has sent you an invitation to come play Lila. Click here to accept.
Admittedly, since her disability, she had become a member of the Twitter Nation and was beginning to even post some pictures on her Facebook profile page. But games? Dot had a PhD in cognitive psychology, and the thought of assuming an avatar seemed on the verge of schizophrenia. But then she noticed a PS at the end of the email, a personal message from her colleague that read,
I know this seems like an odd place to meet, but since I haven't been able to coax you out of the house to join me for tea at the Humanities Institute, I thought I'd meet you in the virtual reality of cyberspace. Please consider the invitation. There are some people I think you should meet here. Best, Chris.
Some people she should meet? Dot had worked for no less than 7 deans during the time at the university. But Chris was different from his predecessors. He had taken several landmark forum courses over the past 10 years, and his conversation seemed so familiar to her own Zen teachings that Dot felt an instant affinity. They would often sit for hours by the koi fountain next to the campus coffee house and discuss the delusions created by the egoic mind. How could a man so committed to truth play an online game that is clearly an illusion? She thought. Dot's curiosity was piqued, and her digestion was beginning to settle down. So within a window of relative calm for her autonomic nervous system, she clicked the accept button and watched the application load onto her computer. The first order of business was to create a character that she would assume in this role-playing game. Dot selected the little pink silhouette and began to choose features for her own female avatar that matched her own sense of self. She picked a set of full brown eyes and dark eyebrows that seemed, if not outright perplexed, then perhaps a bit lost. A nose that was as prominent as her Italian heritage, and lips that were pale in comparison to the assortment of neon collagen-enhanced choices. What pleased Dot most about her avatar styling was the ability to choose gray instead of one of the many vivid selections, but decidedly not natural hair colors in the database. Dot enjoyed her silver strands in real life and had recently joined the no shampoo movement, discarding commercial products entirely and washing her hair with only baking soda and a vinegar rinse. She imagined that her Lila character would also be enviro-friendly and sustainability passionate. She even found a pair of sandals for her caricature that resembled her own vegan Birkenstocks, which were the only shoes she had worn in over 10 years, though in truth, that may have spoke more about the California climate and her recluse bent than perhaps Dot's Earth Mother persona.